Hello, my name's Rick Lucas. Thanks for joining us. I'm really straying way out too far, getting way out of my league here. I'm not sure I'm qualified to go do this. This next interview is a big one. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm going in anyway. I mean, I'm not qualified, but it'll be fun. It's going to be great. Interviewing Stephen Fante. Let me get this correct here. He's the brand ambassador and the executive bourbon steward at Limestone Branch Distillery in Lebanon, Kentucky. This guy's a raconteur. This Yellowstone is fantastic. I bought me a bottle. This bottle's for the venue we're going to be at, Lenny's Lounge. So check them out. There'll be a link in the description coming up here. He's Stephen Fante is a raconteur. He's going to tell us about linger, nose, and finish. I know a little bit about nose, but I probably need to learn some more about the other things. But it's going to be great. And, let me share this with you real quick. Our sponsor, Bluegrass World of Wheels Custom Car Show. There'll be a little text with their website right there. Check them out. Right, Bluegrass World of Wheels. I heard the guy that manages that YouTube channel is a handsome genius, and I heard the guy. Just my opinion. I heard that the guy that built their website manages their website for them is a handsome genius. Go check it out. www.bluegrassworldofwheels.com and their YouTube channel. I'll get you a link to that down there too, and leave a comment. If I'm wrong, you gotta let me know. Okay. Anyway, back to the show. Stephen Fante is a bourbon aficionado, a raconteur. It may be too good for us, or for me, not too good for you. Today we're going to learn something about bourbon. Stick with us. Hello, here we are. We have a special guest today, Mr. Stephen Fante. He is the brand ambassador of executive bourbon steward at Limestone Branch Distillery in Lebanon, Kentucky. I actually had to write that down because I wasn't sure I could remember all of it, because that is quite the title, my friend. You sound like you should be in charge of the whole state or something, but that sounds great. I appreciate your time. I'm just a nobody trying to be a somebody. And a couple things I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, how did you... this is what I wanted to ask you. You're also the Ascot Award winner.
Yes.
Could you... I'm not sure what that is. What is that?
Well, the double Ascot Awards are given to spirits. They've never been given to anything but spirits. Mm-hmm. And Fred Minnick, he has taken my tour at the distillery, and we have done quite a few bourbon events together. I introduced him on stage at a function or two. At some point in time, he had the inspiration to give me the double Ascot Award. Okay. It's the first ambassador to ever get a double Ascot Award.
Nice.
And I asked him what I had done to get this auspicious award. I said, Fred, what did I do better than Freddie Johnson over at Buffalo Trace, who is internationally known? He's got 3 generations of family there and is one of the best tour guides in the world. And what did I do that you gave me this double Ascot Award over Bernie Lubbers, who's the global ambassador for Heaven Hill? He said, Stephen, you're a badass.
That's good enough right there. Well, all right, next question. That's fantastic. No, you're a badass. I get it. I met you at that bourbon mixer for the Bourbon Brotherhood, and you went through the different shots, and you had a little story for each. That was fantastic, and that's why I asked you, because you're a raconteur, which is great. Another thing I wanted to get a feel for was, I know it says, I got in my notes here, Steve Beam, the 7th generation. How related are they to the Beam family, as in Jim Beam? Is that the exact same family? Is it an offshoot? Is it a... Tell me more, please.
It's blood related.
Blood related?
There's no corporate relation whatsoever.
Okay.
Blood related. And you know, there hasn't been that many beans in generations that have actually owned their own distilleries. And at the time Stephen Beam applied for his craft distillery license, there was no longer a Beam family-owned distillery anywhere in the world.
Really? I did not know that.
And so he felt like if he didn't open a distillery as the seventh generation in his family, the seventh generation would go without a Beam distiller in it. And so he decided to open Limestone Branch as the owner of Limestone Branch Distillery with his brother Paul Beam. Steve and Paul opened the distillery. Several family members invested in it, and they opened Limestone Branch Distillery in Lebanon, built it from the ground up.
Nice. And I've also read that there's the Dant family. Is that might be his mother's side, and they were distillers also.
Oh yeah, J.W. Dant was one of the larger distillers. He had a son Bernard that was also a distiller, and
we're talking about bourbon royalty here.
Yeah, you know, the boys weren't born, they were distilled. Mother was a Dant, daddy was a Beam.
Yeah.
And so you've got both sides of the family that were in the distillation industry. His mother was the one, Dottie Ann, that actually inspired him to get into the industry. Dad didn't talk too much about the bourbon industry. Jimmy.
Right.
Jimmy Beam was, he didn't, you know, he'd had that in his family all the years, and Guy, his dad, was a distiller at Fairfield Distillery in Bardstown, and he just didn't talk too much about it, but Dottie Ann was very proud of the Dant family history, and she talked a lot about it, and, you know, went to the distilleries and things with the mom, and so he was inspired by his mom's side of the family, Dottie Ann.
Nice. So we've got some tasting cups, and you've got that. Could you? I'd seen you talking about this before. There's terms that I want to get some clarification on. First, there's linger. So I kind of got an idea what linger is. I'm assuming. I think you had said at one point. Oh, you can say it better than me. You go ahead. Linger.
So if you take a glass of bourbon and you roll it around in that glass, these glassware are important for this. You roll it around in the glass, try not to spill it, and then you let the legs drip down the glass. When you start seeing the legs form on the glass, that's viscosity. Viscosity is directly related to linger. So if you've got fat legs on a glass, you're going to have a long linger on your palate traditionally. So that's kind of what we look for in the industry is, does it have legs? Does it have a finish that lingers? Because if you're short on your finish, then it's probably not the best bourbon whiskey in the world. If it's got a nice long finish and it's a finish that you enjoy, some bourbons finish and you don't enjoy it.
Yes, yeah.
That's probably green bourbon, young, very young bourbon.
Right.
If you've got something that's extraordinary like this is, you're going to have a very long linger. So that's what linger's about. It's about the after you've swallowed it taste. How long does it hang on your palate? This one's got fatter legs than Rosie O'Donnell and a longer hang time than Michael Jordan.
There you go. All right, let me try a little bit of that.
I think it's a great decision.
Right.
This is a single barrel Yellowstone, which means it's a unicorn. It's a one-off, and I like one-offs because that's what most folks in the industry do like. Unique things, the things that are not available on the open. This particular bottle is available in one place and one place only, our distillery gift shop.
Nice.
We traditionally keep 2 or 3 barrels of whiskey at the distillery gift shop at all times, so that when you come from far, far away, which most people do, we don't get too many Lebanites coming to our distillery from Lebanon, Kentucky.
Right.
We get them on the porch with a cocktail once in a while.
Right.
But the actual people that are coming to do the tours and things are people from Scotland and Ireland, and you know, when they get there, they want to buy something they can't buy in their own home country.
Right.
Unicorns.
Right.
So that's why distilleries, I think any distiller that doesn't have single barrels up on their bar for tasting and in their gift shop for sale are doing a disservice to the entire industry.
Excellent. Now, I also remember something about nose, and I think you give it a little before you actually give it a sniff. How's that? What's up with that?
This particular glass is a new glass that I found, and it has a little bit wider opening on the top. And that wide opening helps to alleviate all of that ethanol that comes off of whiskey. But by blowing across the glass, you've blown the ethanol out of it, and then you'll get a pure grain nose. Both sides of your nose pick up on different scents. It's the olfactory, right brain, left brain. You pick up on sweet on one side of your nose, spicy on the other. If you go straight in, you pick up on a combined scent the way you normally smell. So the very first thing I do is look at legs, and then I go to the nose of it, and I write notes about what the nose is that I'm picking up. Is it honeysuckle? Is it caramel? Am I catching a little vanilla off of it? Traditional to Kentucky straight bourbons, all of those things are. And then when you start picking up on that, and you can pick up on it again and again, then you've got a good descriptor on nose. So I traditionally, when I'm writing notes, will write my nose first, my body second, and my finish last. And I usually have 3 or 4 words down on paper about that particular taste. That's it. Sometimes I just put a check mark on it where I liked it. It all depends on, where we're at and how much description is needed.
Right. Okay, so how much? I'm not sure I have a distinguishable or a experienced palate. If that makes any sense.
Total sense.
Right. So
I'm one that does not believe in super palates.
That's what I was going to ask. It's exactly. Can I be trained to kind of get a feel for this, or is it just either you got it or you don't?
No, I think everybody pretty much can be trained to break down a whiskey good enough to enjoy doing it.
Right.
Are you going to be as descriptive as somebody that has a Harvard degree, that has a vocabulary that's a lot larger? Probably not.
There are limits.
Yeah. My descriptions are short and sweet.
I could go to every Groundlings class on the planet. I'll never be as funny as Dave Chappelle.
Exactly.
It's just never, ever gonna. I can become funnier,
but
I'd like to hope.
If you did it 2,500 times on stage, you would probably be pretty damn good to the point where Dave Chappelle, you might not be Dave Chappelle, but my gosh, you could open for him. And that's kind of like the bourbon industry. I really feel like it's the amount of effort that you put into it, and the amount of time you spend with it, and how many actual times you broke bourbon down. I started out, I'd been a tea sommelier, then I was in the coffee industry before that. I've done over 1 million cuppings of coffee in my lifetime. I've done so many tea cuppings, and then I got into the bourbon industry, and now 11 years into it, I'm probably around 3,000 barrel tastings.
Wow.
And so I've gotten better at it.
Right. If you're gonna have a hobby, that's a good one, and you found a way to make it into a profession. So that's a fantastic. I don't know if you're a genius or what. I don't know how that worked out. That's some genius.
I'm just a guy that likes to work.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
That's always a good thing, right? You mentioned something about coffee. I think maybe that's an odd. I shouldn't say odd, but it's a.
They're so similar.
They're so similar, like in coffee and then bourbon. There's a lot of tasting going on.
There's a Golden Cup certified trainer in the coffee industry by the Specialty Coffee Association of America. I know how to roast coffee. I know how to brew coffee. I know how to go to the highest standard in a cup of coffee. I can train you on espressos, cappuccinos, lattes. I can teach you how to make any drink that you could possibly want to make. It's pretty much like being a bartender in the coffee industry. I've done it.
Right.
And so once you've gone through all that,
do you think that experience benefits you now?
You got a master roaster, you got a master distiller. You've got a taster in coffee, and you've got a cupper in coffee, and you've got a taster in whiskey. All of which are exactly, they're not identical, but boy, they're close.
The skill set is similar.
It is very similar.
Very similar. Yeah, I don't know if it's like cricket and baseball.
Yeah.
There's some similar skill sets.
Softball and baseball.
Yeah, there's some similar skill sets there.
Softball and baseball.
Yeah, softball and baseball. Yeah,
bigger ball.
Bigger ball. You get a little older, you can't throw it as far. You're right. Okay. All right. That's fantastic. All right. tell me about what do you mean by the body of the. I mean, you said linger and the legs. So what do you mean about body? I've got three notes here to talk about. Body and finish is the last two.
Well, the first is the nose. Mm-hmm. We've got that. And I'm getting caramels, and I'm getting some marshmallow off of this. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to taste it. I'm swirling around my tongue to get all the flavors I can possibly get off of it. I'm getting a really nice linger now, but the body of it was in the center of the tongue when I was swirling it around. Mm-hmm. What did I pick up on the center of my tongue while I was tasting it?
Okay.
This is a rye bourbon we're drinking, meaning that the flavor grain is rye. So I got a cardamom spice on the center of my tongue with this particular bourbon, this particular single.
See, I don't know if you're convincing me of it or you're right. Like as soon as you mention it, I'm picking up on it. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing that I don't allow during barrel picks is conversation about the whiskey. I'll let everybody put down on their paper exactly what they're tasting, because everybody in my room is a super palate. And I want to know their honest and valued opinions on paper. And at the end of it, then I poll them what they liked. And I put stars next to the answers of what they like. So our star alignment comes together at the very end of the tasting. I flip my book around, and the stars always align. The one with the most stars, the most likes, is the potential pick. And if there's more than one, which happened yesterday in a group, 2 barrels were really, really good. Third barrel kind of fell out, didn't really show up for anybody. But the 2 barrels showed up for a lot of stars on 2 different ones. And it was funny because one of them was at 109 proof. That barrel showed really well at 109, had a lot of water in it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other barrel showed really good at 119. So they chose both barrels. I'll sell it all.
So you're not influencing anybody on what they're gonna like and enjoy.
Yes, because I tell them that if I've got honest and valued opinions on paper, that is your general Q public that's going to be buying the whiskey. You're giving me all of the information I know to be successful, and our hand-picked collection is done that way. We go down the rabbit hole, we taste them side by side like a tea sommelier would do, nose them back to back, taste them back to back, at the very end, to look for bad characteristics. So at the very end, when they have already chosen what they thought was the favorite out of all the barrels, there's usually 3 answers, we call it a trifecta.
Right.
Then they take it against each other, back to back. The 109 they like the best, the 115 they like the best. We're looking for bad characteristics at this point. Whichever one has any kind of indication of a bad characteristic hits the table. They do it one more time against the 119, and that's the 4-star, 5-diamond rating. The win for the Kentucky Derby. The one horse that's going to come across the line first, and that's the barrel that they take to a deserted island, knowing that's the last barrel of whiskey they're ever going to get to drink.
Right.
When I put those 4-star ratings down, I consider them higher than any single stars. Single stars were rated at the beginning on which one they like best at 109, which one they like best at 115, which one they like best at 119. Then they go down the rabbit hole, and they taste them side by side, nose them back to back, taste them back to back. The final answer is, and I pull my book around, and it shows how many 4-star, 5-diamond ratings. The one that they chose at 119 yesterday had 3 people choose it as their favorite, and it had 6 stars next to it. So there were 6 people in the group that all agreed that that particular barrel of whiskey, the 109, was the best thing they tasted through the entire pick. It's the highest rated thing. So they bought it. And then at the 119, it was 2 5-star ratings, and mine.
Still a fine bourbon, but not the one they want to take to the island if they have a choice.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I had them taste them side by side to say, okay, if we just want one barrel, which one has a characteristic I dislike? And they couldn't decide, so I sold them both.
Well, that's why you're the and that's why you're the brand ambassador and executive bourbon steward.
That's the reason that Stephen Beam doesn't leave his truck on the lot on the weekends, because he's afraid I'll sell it.
I love that system because I'm easily influenced.
Yeah, and
you can easily influence and talk me into. This is pine needles, and I
don't talk during the pick.
I'd be wandering off thinking pine needles.
Yes,
really.
And
somehow you'd convince me. Maybe I'm a little weak-minded, or I need more bourbon, or
everybody's
less
influential. Everybody is. I don't care if I'm sitting down with a so-called super palate, and I bring up the fact that I just got pine nuts. Then all of a sudden everybody's thinking pine nuts. I mean, that's just the way it works. Without talking about the pick, we talk about everything else. I get to know about the family. I get to know about who they are. We'll talk about all sorts of things during the
favorite car, whatever,
yes.
Ball teams.
Yes, whatever is popular at the moment.
Yeah, whatever's going on. Right.
Yeah. And at the end of it, we do the polling. Then we talk about the pick.
Right.
Then we dive in. Why did you like 1091? And everybody gives their opinions on why they liked it. And then I throw out what I had on my paper. And it's usually 4 or 5 words. It's nothing extraordinary.
Right.
So that's it's a good way of doing it. It's what we did in the coffee industry. And a lot of it translates to the bourbon industry. And I think our hand-picked selection is getting worldwide acclaim because of it. And I think that's a great.
Now, is this an industry standard, or is this unique to Limestone Branch Distillery?
I hadn't seen anybody else doing it like this. It was something that I had an epiphany moment in the middle of the night. You know how you wake up in the middle of the night, you're just thinking about things?
I usually forget to write it down and lose it.
This was one that was so instilled.
It was bright. It was bright.
It was bright. And that was how I used to do tea. On a Lazy Susan, side by side, nosing it, tasting it, and getting all the flavor out of it. Looking for bad characteristics, not really good characteristics, trying to pick out the best tea. White tea was one that I had to pick out. White tea has no flavor characteristic hardly. So to pick out the best white tea, I had to do it back to back, nose it back to back, slurp through it, taste it.
So maybe your experience in the tea industry really helped
coffee
you.
And tea.
Yeah, coffee and tea really helped you kind of where you're at now. That's an interesting. I wonder if that's a through line. A lot of other guys in a similar role as you come from other backgrounds. Are they just strictly bourbon? I wonder.
No,
I bet they're strictly bourbon.
No,
I'm guessing.
There's a lot of people out there that come from the different beverage industries. I know that John Rempe did something in beverages before he became the master distiller at Lux Row Distillery.
Right.
I don't know exactly what. Originally, I thought he invented Snapple, and he was like, "No, Stephen, I didn't invent Snapple." So I just sent everybody to the distillery that would leave our distillery, and I'd tell them to ask John about Snapple. He was like, "What is wrong with you?"
Well, I know.
'Cause I have fun.
Right. Yes. Sometimes people don't necessarily take a hold of things that their name is attached to all of a sudden. I know a semi-famous craft beer brewer here in the state, and he was one of the first guys to do like that pumpkin spice beer, which, not everyone necessarily likes.
Yeah.
So he will not take ownership of that unless he has to, right? And we have the real star of the show. Who do we have here?
Special guest star, Louis Two Licks.
Louis Two Licks is here.
That's his Chicago Mafia name.
All right. Well, he's here on the Witness Protection Program, so nobody share this video unless they have to show their friends. Right.
He's my service dog.
This is a nice puppy dog. How you doing, buddy? What's up? Oh, and by the way, be sure to like and subscribe. We've got big things coming up with a brewery in Texas and a local regional brewery. So to find out about that, please like. That's a good puppy dog.
Yes, he greets everybody at the distillery. He investigates the shoes, and then he checks them out for snacks.
Of course he does. That's what he has to do that. Okay, one more thing, or a couple more things. I could talk to you all day, I think. What about, have we talked about finish? We have talked about finish, haven't we?
That's kind of the same as linger. What it's doing on your palate after you've swallowed it, after you've cleared your palate from the bourbon. What are you tasting? All that good stuff.
Okay. Something I know you know this, and probably a lot of people here know this, but maybe some others that see this. What makes a bourbon whiskey uniquely Kentucky bourbon? What is that unique thing about that makes it only bourbon from Kentucky?
Well, there was a recent thing that changed the laws in Kentucky, and that was rickhousing. When you barrel your whiskey in Kentucky for over a year, it was Kentucky bourbon.
Right.
But we found that there was
they were making it other places, bringing it
Tennessee
here.
whiskey that was being stored in Kentucky,
Yeah.
and so the governor of the state of Kentucky.
I see it making your teeth are gritting a little bit. Like,
You know, all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
Right. Okay.
And so if you're from Kentucky, you grit your teeth when they start talking about whiskey being bourbon. And not in the standard. Because the standard is it has to be in a new charred American oak container, number one. Not all whiskey does.
Not all whiskey does.
It has to be at a certain proof, off the still and in the barrel. And that proof indicates whether or not it's bourbon or not. Kentucky has 4 seasons in one day. So it's in and out of the oak here in Kentucky more than it is in any other state, and so you get a lot of flavor out of that oak by doing that. If you cut a barrel in Kentucky and you cut a barrel in Texas, we're 3/4 penetrated in Kentucky because it's been in and out of that wood, red lines.
Right.
In Texas, it might go out the other side of the barrel, I'm not sure.
Right.
I hadn't cut a barrel in Texas lately.
Right.
But I guarantee you this, as a Kentucky boy, if I was distilling in Texas, I would be warehousing my whiskey in Kentucky because it has all 4 seasons.
Nice.
Water has to be a great source, and we have limestone all over the state of Kentucky. Thank you, Indiana. One of the things they gave us was great limestone all the way through Kentucky. That's how I feel about it. And in the limestone water, it's softer water, makes better bourbon, and that's what you get out of the water in Kentucky, softer water.
Right.
So there's several different things that make it bourbon. It's very easily Googleable. It'll give you everything that you need to know about why it's bourbon. 51% corn or higher. And in Kentucky, we grew corn, so the traditional bourbons were like 75 and 80% corn because that was our source. Everything else came in on buckboard and mule. You can flavor it. There's flavor grains like wheat. There's flavor grains like rye. And then there's barley to help with the conversion. So most bourbons have one or the other, wheat or rye. And here recently, a lot of people have been doing nice blends of bourbon that are like 4 grains that are wheat, rye, barley, and corn. And so you can mix and match all that stuff up to make a bourbon whiskey.
Right.
But it has to follow those basic standard guidelines in order for it to be America's native spirit.
Nice,
All
nice.
50 states can make bourbon. Not all states make it well.
Right.
As a Kentucky boy, we're a suspect of anything that's not made out of Kentucky.
We are a suspect of anything not made in Kentucky. Exactly right, sir. I agree 100%. Now, I see you got this minor case here, and one thing I'd like to ask, and this is gonna how I'm gonna drag people to the end of the video, maybe.
Okay.
Right, would be if you were gonna buy a really good, top-notch, this is just for me bourbon, which one of Yellowstone's pickings would you go with? I mean, obviously, I'm thinking this one. Okay, all right. That's what I was not ready for that. All right, what's kind of the price point for that?
120,
See, that's not
99. Depends on where you're buying it from. You know, the big distributors get access to more of the allocated whiskeys, and this is an allocation, and it's Stephen Beam at his stretch point, doing something unique and different that the industry hasn't seen. The 2024 brandy cask and cognac cask finished. So a certain portion of the barrels went to a brandy cask to be finished, and a certain portion of the barrels went to a cognac cask to be finished. So in saying that, it has a very unique linger. It has a nice dry leather finish. It picks up on some of those, cognac notes, and so that's why it's extra special.
This is the one you only share with real friends.
Yes, this is super special sauce.
Right. All right.
Let's try some and see what you think about it. So you can give me some descriptors for a change.
Now I'm scared. He done put me on spot. Now.
Yeah, why not? Somebody had to. Louis, if you go to Barbados without me, I'm going to be upset. You're a good boy. You're hanging out just right. So you come to Limestone, you're going to get to meet Louis. He will greet you at the door. He runs free range over the distillery property. So pull in slow, because Louis might be out in the parking lot looking for you.
Well, it's a little more subtle than the other Yellowstones, I think. It's not overwhelming, but there's a... Is that a little bit of vanilla, maybe? There's somewhere in there?
I like it.
It's not quite caramel. It's something else, though.
The nose is phenomenal. And when you got a great bourbon like this, it's got the age on it that this does, and it's a mingle, but it's got a solid age on it. You got to appreciate the nose. All that time in the oak.
It's a little, it's not quite right to describe it this way, like woody a little bit.
It's bringing those oak notes out. The woody notes are coming out because of the age.
Okay.
It's
then the finish is, it's like it's still there. And it's all over my mouth too. Is that weird to say? I don't know.
No, it's not. It's
like it's
all
over
parts of your palate.
Yeah, it's not just like
It's a 12-cylinder whiskey.
Yeah, it's not
firing on all 12 cylinders. It's tasting on all parts of your palate.
Yeah, it's not gone right away.
No, it's got to linger for days. I would enjoy this whiskey with a Maduro cigar, something that's got some spice to it, because it
something
needs
else too. I can't figure out what it is. There's something else there, Steve. I don't know what it is though. Let me see.
Well, out of the bourbon whiskeys that I've drank a lot. This one has a
Man, that's so good.
very leather finish. It has a very dry finish, like a cognac or like a brandy would.
Oh, it is a little dry. Yeah.
And I would totally dip a cigar down in this. The base of the cigar to cool it and just enjoy that flavor in the cigar. You get a nice spicy cigar and drop that down into the base of this, and you're going to have an extraordinary experience.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
That's an experience right there. Nice.
That's Stephen Beam at his finest, stretching himself to come up with something new and interesting in the bourbon industry. He is a savant. If you spend any time with Stephen Beam, you understand how much of a savant he truly is. And I expect him to be in the Bourbon Hall of Fame sooner than later. And I expect that because he's just that good.
Well, I can hardly wait till I get to vote for him, if they let me. Hopefully they let me vote for him. I just want to be involved, really. But all right, one other thing, we've got that choice. What if you were just the like a average price bottle with just a little?
Let's go to toasted.
Okay.
How would you do a toasted whiskey? I just finished with the fact that he's a savant, right?
You did, sir.
One-dimensionally, put it in a wine cask like most toasteds are done, a single origin wine cask that may have never been used. And if you do that, you're going to get one-dimensional whiskey. Stephen Beam took a 5,000-gallon vat, put multiple staves in that vat, 6 staves at 6 different toast levels. And when you do that, and you add those ropes and staves to it, all of a sudden, you get a complexity that gets you the San Francisco Spirits Award double gold in your toasted, going up against everybody in the industry. And that's a savant on a still, figuring it out. How do we take and do a national brand, and how do we do a toasted at a higher level? And those are the things that he spends his nights thinking about. I wake up thinking about tea tastings. He wakes up thinking about what's going to be popular in the next 6 years. And I think this one is going to be outstandingly recognized across the industry.
Well, that's got a different finish to it. It takes the edge off a little bit. I don't know if that's caramel or not.
I think this one that we just tasted was a little sweeter. If I had it just side by side, I'd say this is even more dry on the finish than this one. And when I say dry, I'm thinking complexity. This one has a deep complexity to it that I love. Just lingering with it and figuring out what is it that I'm tasting. Those are some extraordinary profiles that I'm picking up on this
There's 4 or 5 things in there.
Do a Manhattan with the toasted, because if you do, you'll never go back. You'll be like, I want my Manhattans in Yellowstone, which brings me to a point that I need to bring up.
Okay.
And I always bring it up in every interview. Yellowstone bourbon whiskey is synonymous to our national park. 1872, it's been around since 1872. Bernard Dant, Cold Spring Distillery, created it. It has never been off the shelf. It's been served at Yellowstone National Park. It's been sold there on the shelves ever since. And it is one of the largest supporters of our national parks conservancy. So when you buy a bottle of Yellowstone, you're not just drinking whiskey. You are drinking whiskey for a cause. Support our parks, drink more Yellowstone.
Now, I'm not sure we could go out any better than that. I mean, that was an excellent note. I think you knew. Anything else you'd like to add, Steve? Anything we missed? I think that was the price point right there, man. I think you kicked it right there.
We've got a lot of great whiskey at the distillery. I'd like to invite you all down to come to our distillery. It's a great experience. You're going to get to meet Louis. You're going to get to have a cigar out on our porch. We promote cigar smoking on our porch. You got a cigar in this hand and a bourbon in this hand. Where's your cell phone? It is non-existent. Spend some time with us. Have a great craft cocktail. We got one of the best craft cocktail specialists in America. And you're going to have an enjoyable time. The building an ocean behind us, we won't talk too much about it. It's called Jefferson's Ocean. I figure I'll be able to marlin fish off my she-shack when it's done. But you're going to have a twofer if you come to the property, because right behind us, coming in like next year, Jefferson's Oceans will be open, and you'll have a big experience over there with column stills, and you'll have a small, intimate experience with us. So come to Lebanon. Visit us. Visit Maker's Mark 9 miles up the street. Visit the cooperage there in Lebanon to see how they make the barrels. Just come see us. That's the main point.
And we would also like to thank North of Bourbon on Goss Avenue for letting us do the interview here.
This cocktail is phenomenal. They make the best cocktails in the state of Kentucky. And their food, 7 times top notch. They have some awards that they've just won. They have a New Orleans cuisine here that is absolutely as good as New Orleans ever thought about having.
Their steak and eggs for brunch on Sundays is fantastic, and they make some of the best drinks in town.
We're sitting in a bourbon barrel having this interview, for God's sake. Where else can you do that?
Look, it's dark and bourbony. Look at the ambiance we got going on here. So it's good for a date and good for just a nice, clean bourbon. Let's thank Stephen Fante for his time, sir. You've been fantastic. I couldn't have asked for more.
I appreciate you putting up with me. We're going to have a pour of some old dusty Yellowstone next. And God bless you. Wish you were here.
There we go. Had a great time yesterday with Stephen Fante. But first, let me thank North of Bourbon. We had a technical difficulty at our first location we were going to go to. HVAC problem, somebody stupid. I don't know. Don't care. The good news is we got to go to North of Bourbon on the flight. They were great, hosted us. We tried the catfish bites. They were fantastic. They got a lot. It's got kind of a Cajun New Orleans flavor to it. A lot of great bourbons. They recently were ranked one of the best restaurants in Louisville, and even better than that, they were recognized by the New York Times as one of the top 50 restaurants in the United States. So that's a big deal. Real cozy little small place in Louisville, Kentucky. You'll love it. But Stephen Fante had a contact there, so it helps out a lot when you know someone that knows everybody in the bourbon world. But Stephen is a great storyteller. He's got a plethora of bourbon facts. He can just go on and on. My favorite, I think, was the linger, the finish on the Yellowstone. So we tried a hand-picked barrel. We tried several, but I think that was my favorite. And that linger was the most memorable thing. It just lingers, and it's a must-have for any bourbon connoisseur. If you come to my house and I'm pouring you a bourbon and I pull this bottle out, that means I must like you, okay? This is not for the casual friend, but it's reasonably priced. I think at Liquor Barn it was $59 a bottle. I mean, that's really nice. So, and if you've watched the video, you know there's several other offerings in there. But I love that linger. So for more info about Limestone Distillery, Stephen Fante, check out the description. And anyway, thank you, and be sure to subscribe.